We're about to walk through the entire process of shooting and editing short form social media content. From setting up your filming space, the composition, the settings, the lighting, recording audio, and editing it all to look like a pro. By the end of this video, you will feel 100% confident shooting on both your smartphone and a professional camera. Let's dive in. What's up everyone? Anthony here from contentcreator.com, and with me I have Ashley. She's an awesome student at contentcreator.com. She's in our 30-day course creator program. She learned how to use Facebook ads to scale her music business well past 6 figures, but today we're branching into a new form of marketing for her, and that is organic short form content. We're in her home office today. We're gonna walk through the full 7-step process using just a smartphone, and then make some upgrades to see what you might be working with if you have some money to invest in. Oh, and by the way, all the audio you hear today is actually from our sponsor. It is the Hollyland Lark M2 microphone. Love it, but more on that later. So step 1 in the process is studio or office optimization. Now Ashley's kind of done a really good job of doing the work for us. She's got acoustic foam and some other things set up. Why don't you just first start out with, what's the deal with the acoustic foam? How much did you spend? What's it actually doing for you?
I spent about $0 because a buddy of mine is actually in a Billy Joel tribute band, and he has his own studio where he just let me use foam that was just sitting in a box for like a year. And then what I did was I just got a bunch of cardboard and just like broke it down, put it together, just put some like 3M adhesive spray on it, put that on, and then used 3M command strips. So you're looking at maybe a $15, $20 project.
And did it like make a big difference?
Oh, it made a huge difference.
Yeah.
And especially, you'll see that we've got it kind of all around here. We've got bass traps up in the corners, down below in some spaces where we can. And I actually record my original music here too.
Yeah, I would say as far as like bang for your buck studio optimizations can go, cheap acoustic foam like this stuff that you see here, super valuable. The bass traps and everything, if you were to buy it from Amazon, you're probably looking at like $50, but it can make a $50 mic sound like a $300 mic.
For sure.
Now, on top of that, you also have blackout blinds, which I think are really important to note. If you're in a space with windows, you're always gonna have uncontrolled lighting. A cloud could go in front of the sun. It can totally mess up your reel or whatever you're filming. So I always recommend just buying some things like this from Amazon. That's also going to help dampen some of the noise. All the soft fabrics kind of catch it, which is really good. And then last but not least, you've already done a good job of this. I always tell people they need to clear the clutter in their office. Like wherever they're filming, there's so much junk. You've done a pretty good job with the wires. We don't really know what angle we're gonna film from yet, but we could almost choose any angle in this office because you've done such a good job of cleaning. So good step 1.
Thank you.
All right, so step number 2 is choosing your composition. All I'm gonna do is just hit record on my phone and start looking at just different angles. So one, right off the bat, we've got this kind of like even symmetrical composition here. I think that could easily be a shot, but I don't wanna just settle on my first idea. Another thing that I always look for in picking an angle is like, how long is your office? What's the longest direction that you could film in? Because that creates depth, it makes your space feel bigger, just kind of gives it a more cinematic look. So this wall corner to that wall corner is the longest space we have. And there is a lot going on back there. Like the acoustic foam is good from an audio perspective. I don't think it's the most aesthetic thing in the world. But this angle is good too. We have the kind of symmetry of the 2 lines of the wall converging. We've got that shelf back there, which doesn't look bad. We could also square up right here, although, again, I'm not a huge fan of the acoustic foam in the back. And then last but not least, we could also come over here, and that, if we got good lighting from the window, would be cool, but it is going to be an uncontrolled factor. So I do think, just based on all that, to start for this first set, we're gonna go this way. I think that looks best. We can just square up. So Ashley, why don't I have you come right here for now? And everything we do today, by the way, I'm gonna be obviously helping Ashley, but we're trying to teach in a way where you can watch and do it yourself as well. If Ashley didn't have me here, she would basically run through the same process, put the phone on a tripod, she'd take maybe a test clip, review how the footage looks. That's how you overcome not having a second set of hands. But here we are. And that looks good just in the auto settings. Literally just using the light from the windows already is not bad. We could test out the ultra wide angle. We'd have to get closer. That can kind of distort facial properties, so I think the 1x lens is much better for right now. We can also switch into cinematic mode, and that honestly looks really good. The background blur looks natural. We still see all the cool stuff she's got going on back there, but it's not quite as distracting. It's kind of like faking having a professional camera with a lower aperture. So I think we're gonna stick with that. You can stay right there. I'll get the tripod. Now the tripod that I'm using right here is just a super basic Ulanzi tripod. It's really great for like hiking because it's super light and just easy to use. It's also small. For stuff in my office, I don't like having massive tripods. Set this up. Now you'll notice again, one thing that's super key, and I always see beginners making this mistake, look at where we're setting up the camera and look at where Ashley's sitting. We've got everything compressed up against this wall as close as we can. First off, as she's speaking, it's great that we have acoustic foam right here. It's gonna bounce right into that and the audio is gonna sound much cleaner, but we also want space behind her. You always want to increase the depth by literally increasing the three-dimensional space. That's why I had Ashley come all the way up here. All right, now we are filming short form social media content. I get this question all the time. Should I film vertical or horizontal? My answer is always, if you know you're filming for social media, right now, you just got to film vertically. If you're trying to multi-purpose your content and get it on both YouTube and Instagram, I would say maybe film horizontal. Usually I will just film it twice, one both ways, but it's always easier to crop in from horizontal footage to make it vertical than doing vice versa. It's just gonna ruin your shot. So we'll film vertical for now because that's what we're doing. Now, what I'm looking for in this shot is just horizontal lines are actually horizontal, vertical lines are actually vertical. We don't want our frame like crooked or rotated at all. We wanna make sure Ashley is perfectly centered. Now, when you're filming vertical, you might have heard of the rule of thirds before. That's when you divide your frame into thirds vertically and horizontally. When you are speaking directly to the camera, like a talking head short form style video, I typically frame them perfectly centered and I want their eyes right on that top line. That's gonna give you the perfect amount of headspace to where if the video ever got cropped on like Instagram or TikTok, you still have plenty of space to actually view the person's face. And I also think videos are a little bit more dynamic when their hands are actually in it. So you can see right now, Ashley's framed right below like waist up. So if she moves her hands and she's dynamic while she's talking, we've got all that in there as well. And because Ashley's gonna be talking about music today, we'll also give her her guitar. Which one? Do we want this one?
Yeah, that's the baby.
There we go. Having additional props, I definitely think can improve your videos quite a bit. All right, now step 3, we can talk about our camera settings. Now, if camera settings are something that just terrify you, I do think for short form social media content, you're totally fine to use the built-in auto mode on your iPhone or Android. If you're doing that, the only settings you really need to worry about are first and foremost the resolution. You wanna make sure that you're filming in 4K. That's the highest resolution that most iPhones, Androids can sometimes go up to 8K, but I still recommend 4K. That's gonna give you a really high quality image. And then for your frame rate, you can pretty much choose between 24 or 30 frames per second. A lot of people will say 24 is the Hollywood standard, which it is, but social media also likes 30 frames per second. Won't impact the look too much. And then the last setting that you can manage in the built-in app, if you're gonna film in cinematic mode, which is what I'm gonna do right now, you can tap on the little aperture icon and you can see, do you wanna go all the way down to 2.0, which is gonna increase your background blur, or you can increase it to like 14, 16. That's gonna get you to almost no background blur. Typically, I stick right around 2.8. I think that's like a natural amount of background blur, and we will can it right there. Step number 4 is lighting. Now, right off the bat, what I recommend you do, make sure your ceiling lights, if you're inside, are off. And despite the fact that these windows actually look really good, I am just going to completely shut them and black out this light for now. Luke, I'm gonna get behind you here too. In a perfect scenario, I always want to have the most controlled lighting as I possibly can, so we're going to close those. So this is the one professional light that we're going to be using, and it's great because it's a really affordable option. It's from my favorite lighting brand, Newer, and it is the MS150C. This light's fully bicolor and RGB, meaning you can basically get any color you want out of it. For the time being though, I'm really just gonna use the white 5600 Kelvin setting. That matches the same color temperature as the sun. We're gonna bring that right over here, get it up against the wall, rotate it a little bit. Now I have this set to 100% strength right now, and it honestly looks really good. It's a little bright, and this is what I mean when we talk about settings. You wanna get your settings the way that you know they should be, and then from there you modify the exposure by modifying your lighting. So we're gonna bring this down a little bit. That's 70%. That looks good. Little lower. All right, that looks awesome. Now, the light is extremely important, but I will say, what's potentially even more important is the diffusion that you use. So this is a lantern. It's also from Neewer. It attaches right onto the front of the light, and it really softens that light, makes it look super professional, and kind of matches the vibe that you might be used to seeing on really expensive commercial sets. But in total, this isn't gonna cost you a ton of money. Now, as far as actually placing your light is concerned, really simple, easy rule of thumb. You want the light 45 degrees off to the side of yourself or your subject, and then you want it about another 45 degrees up so that when it's actually hitting your subject, you have one side of their face that is really nice and evenly lit, and the other side of their face is slightly darker. It adds a little bit more depth and contrast to the scene, and you have even shadows falling off to the side. So that's it for the key light. That's all we really need to get Ashley looking great and cinematic, but I always like to have some background elements as well. In my office, you'll always notice I have like Edison bulbs on my back shelf. Not only are those really good practical lights, which are just lights that exist in the scene, they also have color contrast, which again adds even more depth to the scene. So right now I've got more awesome lights from Neewer. These are their really small tube lights. You can get 2 of them for $50. They're magnetic, so you can stick them like to your desk. They're also full RGB bicolor, so you can pretty much produce any color with them, and the battery lasts a decent amount of time. So I'm gonna just put these on Ashley's desk and try to get some color contrast. We've got the blue screen going on, which I actually do think looks good, and a contrasting color to blue is orange. So, oh, that looks freaking awesome. Wow. That's like just in the frame though, so let's see if we can back that off a little bit. Dang. 50 bucks, we just added like $1,000 worth of production value. Not bad. So if you're wondering how I knew that those were complementary colors and they have great contrast, look up a picture of a color wheel, and whatever colors you have in your office, in your studio, wherever you're filming, look across the color wheel. That's how you know they're gonna be complementary, and odds are they're just gonna look great when you set them up. All right, moving on, step number 5 is having professional audio. And the good news is setting it up doesn't need to break the bank, because the Hollyland Lark M2 is my favorite wireless mic when we're talking budget options. And the audio is incredible. What you've been hearing this entire video is the Hollyland Lark M2. There's a lot of things I love about it. One of the number one things that I love though is how freaking small it is. As far as wireless microphones are concerned, usually they're much bigger. They will come with magnets. You put them on your shirt and then your shirt's like hanging down like this. It's very clear that you're wearing a mic. So this is really nice that you can just snap it right on. You can hide it very easily. You can actually cover the logo up as well if you want to be even more discreet. Aside from the audio quality itself just being really good straight out of the mic, they also have a built-in AI noise cancellation mode, which if you're outside, by roads or other just loud places, super, super helpful feature for just getting clean audio. And then if you're using a smartphone like we are right now, this might be my favorite feature. It's a super small connector. They have one for both USB-C and Lightning, depending on what phone you have. Plugs right into your phone. It doesn't need a battery. It gets charged by the actual phone itself and immediately syncs the audio from your wireless mic to go directly into your phone. The pack comes with 2 microphones. So right now I have one on. Ashley has one on as well. So you can get multiple people speaking at once. The whole set comes with a charging case where you can just store everything. It's got hours and hours of battery life, so you really don't need to worry about them dying on you. And compared to most other wireless mics of this quality that are literally $300, $400, even $500, the fact that you can get this for under $200, sometimes under $150, is crazy. We've actually got a link in the description where you can get these for a great price. So thank you, Hollyland, for sponsoring this video and the great audio. To show you how important audio is as well, we're gonna record with no mic whatsoever. Ashley, why don't you just say, hey, I'm Ashley, this is bad audio.
Hey, my name's Ashley, and this is bad audio.
And now we are going to switch to the Hollyland mic, which she has on right now. Do the same line.
Hey, my name's Ashley, and this is good audio.
There we go. All right, now step number 6 is the recording process. And if I have one tip for you with your content, it's to plan it out as much as you can beforehand. That means bulleting out all the different talking points you want to deliver, or even better, what I usually try to do is fully script out the entire video. Now, with a fully scripted video, you have the option of using a teleprompter, which you can literally just read the lines right back to the camera. I do that a lot for YouTube videos. For social media content, especially on a smartphone, it can get a little tedious trying to incorporate a teleprompter. So what I recommend most people do, and what Ashley's gonna do right now, is to literally just hit record and then record one line at a time. And then when we edit the video, we can just remove all the spaces in between the lines, make it look super professional. It's not a big deal at all. The last tip I'll give you in the planning phase is that however much time you're gonna spend planning your content, spend at least half of that time planning the hook. It is the single most important element to getting people to actually watch your videos. You wanna give them a reason to watch, make them curious as to what you're actually gonna say, show them something that stops their scroll. Those 3 things by themselves will increase your views like crazy. So with that being said, Ashley, we're pretty much good to go. I'm gonna hit record on this. You are center framed. Everything looks great. And we'll just let you record the lines.
All right. These are the top 3 songs that always get my crowd singing along. These are the top 3 songs that always get my crowd singing along.
Nice.
What's next?
Next on our list at number 2 is Country Roads by John Denver.
Now, next on our list at number 2 is Country Roads by John Denver.
So that was step 6, the recording process. We used a smartphone, and personally, I think it looked amazing. A smartphone is all you need nowadays to shoot incredible content, but I know people are curious, so I do want to switch in a professional camera. This is the Sony a7S III with a 24 to 70 millimeter lens, just so we can get a kind of comparison. Get rid of this guy. And also, if you do have a professional camera and you want to get into short form content, super helpful accessory that you can get is this guy right here. It's a vertical and horizontal mount for tripods, so you can record like this. Then you can also rotate it and film vertically. This is also, or no, this is actually from Small Rig. I'll have all the gear we talked about today linked in the description, but this one's kind of a no-brainer pickup. All right, so we are getting things framed up pretty much the same way. It's a little tricky, we don't have too much space back here. Again, if Ashley was solo, she would set this up, record a test clip, view it. She could also get an external monitor, but I don't think it's necessary. We're gonna modify our settings a little bit. Bring that ISO down to 200. Our aperture is f2.8 because that's the lowest this lens can go. And then our shutter speed is 1/50th of a second. Resolution 4K, frame rate 24 frames per second. And that looks pretty dang good. Now, I think the Sony looks incredible, and for, a $3,000 to $4,000 camera setup, I am happy with the image, but comparing it to the iPhone, I think the iPhone absolutely holds up, and Android, like the Samsung Galaxy series, that's gonna hold up as well. And that reason right there is why we created the 14-day smartphone filmmaker program, which you can get at contentcreator.com. It's literally a start to finish process that covers every single detail you could ever need to know about shooting and editing cinematic content using your smartphone. And anyone who enrolls using the link beneath this YouTube video is also gonna get our 14-day filmmaker Pro Camera Edition, which covers the same exact process using more expensive professional gear. I think this is the best investment any beginner content creator can make because it literally teaches you how to get started with the gear you have now, and then as you upgrade over time, it's gonna guide you along the entire process. So click the link below, and I'll see you in that program. All right, we are back in the office, and it's time to edit the content that we just shot. Now, in today's video, I'm gonna be using CapCut primarily because in my eyes, it's the best free editing software that works on both your computer and your phone. It's the easiest thing for any beginner watching this video to just follow along with. Now on this YouTube channel, I have a full 45-minute tutorial walking through the entire program for both the desktop version of the app and the smartphone version of the app. So with that being said, I'm not gonna cover every single intimate detail of the app in this video because the goal is speed with this one. If you do want those in-depth trainings, just check out our channel. I'll have the videos linked below. And even better than that, check out 14 Day Filmmaker because we have tons tons and tons of editing training and even more editing templates, sound effects, all that good stuff. Now I'll be using the desktop version of CapCut. Keep in mind, if you want to follow along with your smartphone, the interfaces mirror each other almost perfectly, so you shouldn't have an issue. It's just easier to show how to edit on a computer because the screen is bigger. All right, with that being said, we'll come down to CapCut on my Mac here. By the way, if you want recommendations on what computer to buy for editing, we have a video on that as well. But either way, we'll come up and start a new project. Now CapCut's layout is really straightforward. Up here is where our actual video files will live. The timeline is down here on the bottom. That's where we assemble our different clips, cut out mistakes and rearrange things. The video will play here in the center. That's the player window. And then this is kind of like our flex window in the top right. It'll change depending on what we're like looking at, what we've got selected. So to start, we'll just import the clip that we filmed today. I'll tap on import there and I have it named here, Ashley's Reel. Okay, so you can see this is where our clip is stored. You can see it here. Now, if I wanted to, I could just drag this entire clip down to the timeline, and now we have a very easy to see, just kind of visual representation of the entire video. If I wanted to, I could hit Command Z, undo that. Could also select just a portion of that. For example, I can drag this and say, okay, I want to pull this in, and I will have it stop right here, right? Based on what we're seeing over here. I can then drag just that shorter segment onto the timeline. I usually just bring the whole clip down. So that's what we'll do here. We'll just extend it back to the full clip and then bring that down. Very basic controls of the timeline. If you wanted to trim the beginning, you would just hover over to the left of the clip, and now you can drag out and just kind of delete or trim the section of the beginning. You could do the same with the end, shorten your clip there. What I actually do though is I usually just cut and delete segments. So you can see we have all these different controls up here. The one that you'll be using a lot is split. You could do the keystroke, which is Command plus B, or instead you can just bring the little play bar over to where you want to create a cut point and hit the split button. There you can see it's just split our clip into two sections. If you wanted to delete a portion from the middle of the video, for example, you could split, and now you have three separate clips. You could select that, hit delete, and boom, you're ready to go. Now I just reversed back to the beginning. That's kind of like your quick crash course on CapCut. For the most part, step number one for me with a clip like this is I wanna make sure it looks good before we start cutting it and trimming it and all these things. So that's color correction. All you need to do to color correct your clip, with it selected, I usually just find a frame that's kind of representative. Yeah, that looks good. Now we've got it selected. You can see, oops, it's highlighted here. You can see with it selected, the clip is highlighted. We can come up here to the top right. You see how I called this a flex panel? It kind of changes depending on what you've got going on. Now with it selected, we can come up here to the adjustment panel, scroll down, and we have some basic color controls. Now we could have an entire video on just color correction, which we do in our course, but for the most part, what I'm gonna focus on is just the exposure. Okay, I can see it's a little overexposed. The highlights are kind of hot. So what I'm gonna do is grab those and bring it down. You can see it's impacting just the brighter portions of the image. Bringing those highlights down will increase the contrast to get the image to just pop a little bit. Maybe we'll do like a -1 on the exposure or the brightness. That looks pretty good. Not bad. I'm just gonna do some minor adjustments because again, the iPhone in auto mode did a good job, but toggling it on and off, I think that looks great. The next step in my process would be checking the audio out, making sure it sounds good, doing any minor enhancements. Now, we use the Hollyland Lark M2 in this video. I think it sounds great right out of the mic. You really don't need to do too much to it. If you wanted to though, you could select that clip, come over to audio, and then do a loudness normalization. That's just gonna adjust the levels and get them steady throughout the entire video. If you did wanna use CapCut Pro and upgrade, it's like 11 bucks a month. They also have a really cool enhanced voice feature that just uses AI to kind of perfectly analyze your voice and get it sounding even better. It is nice, but you definitely do not need it. And I should have said that earlier. Every single thing that we're gonna be doing in this video is in the free version of CapCut. You do not need to spend any money to get any of the features that we use.
These are the top 3 songs that always get my crowd singing along.
Cool, so that's our actual first line. And all I'm gonna do is go right before she talks. And I'm just zooming in on the timeline here. You can use the plus and minus keys here to zoom in more. And now I'm going to hit Command B, which creates a cut point right there. And I can just delete that needless section at the beginning. Now we can play it from the start.
These are the top 3 songs that always get my crowd singing along.
Boom, and now that's the end of the first line, so we'll create another cut point right there. Okay, so here is the next line. You can kind of see it if we zoom real close in on the timeline. There's actually an audio waveform at the bottom of the clip, and usually you can kind of key in on, okay, once that waveform peaks, you know that's when the talking starts again. This one's a little confusing because I was obviously there talking with Ashley as well, so my voice is getting in there. But we've gotten to this point right here. Now what we could do is hit Command B, and now we have this section right here of, again, nothingness that we can just cut out. I could hit delete, but I'm actually gonna hit Command Z and show you an even faster way to do this. On our little timeline tools here, you can see this one right next to split, which is delete left. What this does is it deletes everything from the playhead, which is this line right here, to the previous cut. So if I hit this button, or I do the keystroke, which is Q, watch what happens. Boom. It just deleted all of that, and now we can go directly from one clip to another. So there we have our 2 clips. They're right up next to each other. I usually try to clean those cuts up and get them as tight and fast as possible. Just, it helps with retention. But for the most part, I'm gonna go through the rest of this entire clip, just save you the time of watching me, delete all those pauses, all those breath marks, and get the final A-roll ready to go. What you'll notice now is obviously there are a lot of these cut points, and we can solve that by doing what pretty much all modern editors do. They punch in and out on each opposite clip. So we have this clip right here, right? I'll zoom in on the timeline a little bit. That one's good as is, but when we go to the next clip, all we really need to do is come over here and make sure you're on the video and basic tab, and you can just increase the scale and move Ashley's face down a little bit. That way, when it transitions from clip to clip, I'll just mute it here so you don't hear the actual audio. We have the cut point, and then the clip actually zooms in, which looks really nice. It looks almost like we have 2 different cameras recording at the same time. At least that's the desired effect. And then when that clip ends, it zooms out, and again, it kind of covers up that cut point a little bit. It's not as jarring. And if you watch pretty much all modern videos on social media, they're doing these punch-ins and punch-outs on the cut. So our next step is just doing exactly that. I'll go through in every other clip. What did I do this first one to? 131, so we'll do, again, 131. Bring her face down just a little bit. Good, good. Next one. So now you can see we just did that, and going through the entire video, it just keeps cutting in and out, which is just a much better look. All right, our next step is one of the best features of CapCut, and that is the auto caption feature. You definitely want captions on your short form content like Reels and TikToks. And to do that, it's really easy. We can just come up to the text tab up here in the top left, hit on auto captions right there, select your language, ours is English, and I will hit generate. All right, so we've got our auto captions, and they're just very basic right now, no styling or anything like that. It also looks like it didn't really caption the parts where she's kind of actually singing and playing the song. That's fine, I think we don't need captions there. But to edit these, all you gotta do is select a caption. Now make sure if you want the edit you make to the caption to apply to all the captions in the video, you have this box, apply to all, checked. This means any change you make will apply to all of the other captions. If you just wanted to make a change to one individual caption, you would uncheck that. But here we have some pre-built out styles that are really nice, easy to use. You just really need to ask yourself if those are options you want to pay for. I think the free ones have a lot of good options. For example, this one right here is nice. The words just kind of pop up one at a time.
These are the top 3 songs that always get...
Let's see, actually, usually for social media, I feel like sometimes just one word at a time is good. Let's see this.
These are the top 3 songs that always get my crowd singing along.
Nice, I like that. And you can see it applied it to all of the other ones. Now music, you have a lot of different options. I usually get most of my copyright-free music from epidemicsound.com. I'll have a link where you can get started with them in the description. It is a monthly subscription fee, but they have tons of high quality music. They're not sponsoring this video. I've just used them for years. Outside of Epidemic Sound, if you wanted something free, you can always go to YouTube and type in audio library, and you'll get a long playlist of really nice free songs. And then alternatively, you could take music from the platform that you're posting on, like Instagram or TikTok audio, stuff like that. CapCut actually has some music built in that you could choose. So you could come up to the audio tab here and preview some songs and see if you want to use any. This is a song from CapCut that is free and it's actually kind of cool. So all I'm going to do here is just take it and drag it down to the timeline. It just lives on its own little layer beneath the video. And here we can modify the volume with the clip selected. Up here in the basic tab, we're gonna bring the volume way down. Usually, I do like -18 to -20 dB, but you're gonna have to use your ear and just make sure it definitely isn't encroaching too much on the actual talking audio. Cool, so that sounds much better. The music is very in the background. We have these sections though where Ashley's singing, and all I'm gonna do there is just cut out the music entirely. So what I'm gonna do is go to the beginning of this clip where she starts singing. With the audio selected, we can use that same tool we used earlier, the split tool, or just hit Command B. That's gonna create a little cut right there, and then we can take the rest of the song, drag it back so it comes in. All right, up next, we wanna add B-roll to the video. Now, if you've never heard the term before, B-roll is just the additional clips that you use in your video to give more perspective to the viewer. So for example, here, Ashley says her third favorite song, or actually her most favorite song, is Footloose. What we'll do here is just scroll to the video where she actually talks about that.
I actually just played this song at a wedding reception and it was so much fun seeing everybody cut loose on the dance floor.
Really cool. So right as she introduces that, we'll drop that clip in.
I actually just played this song at a wedding reception and
right there. So she introduces the wedding reception. We'll even use the arrows to go back a few frames. And now we'll come up to this clip. And all I'm gonna do is select the part that makes the most sense. So where can you see people just dancing like crazy? And now that we've dropped it on the timeline, you can see because it's on a layer above this main clip, which is called the A-roll, the B-roll will then take over as soon as that pops up on the timeline. And that looks great. So we'll play through that here.
I actually just played this song at a wedding reception.
And there we have the audio from this clip coming in. All we need to do to mute that, come over to the left, hit mute clip audio, and then we will be good to go.
At a wedding reception, and it was so much fun seeing everybody cut loose on the dance floor.
Love that. And then right as she stops talking about it, we could either come and drag this to trim it, or even better, we could hit Command B to create that cut point, or Control B if you're on a PC computer, and then we'll delete the leftover.
At a wedding reception, and it was so much fun seeing everybody cut loose on the dance floor. A lot of people get intimidated.
Perfect. And now that is how you add B-roll. You would look for in your own edit every opportunity to add more visual depth and introduce more B-roll. For the sake of keeping this video quick, I'm not gonna add 100 more B-roll clips just because it's the same process over and over again. But for you, definitely film additional B-roll whenever you're filming your content. Grab clips from online. If you don't have actual B-roll you can use, you can always look up stock footage. My favorite site for free stock footage is pexels.com, which I'll have linked below. And if you're in your edit and you realize you really wish you had more B-roll, that's always a good opportunity to kind of take your camera back out, film some more B-roll, import it into the project, and go from there. Now, the next thing we can talk about is adding transitions to our videos. There are a lot of transitions built into CapCut, some of which are cheesy, some are really cool, but using them is super easy. Now, one thing about transitions is you need to know that the clips that you're transitioning between need to be next to each other on the same timeline layer. So for example, here, we have this B-roll clip, and I'd love to do like a zoom or a swipe transition to this next clip of Ashley, but because they're on different layers, if I were to come up here to the transition tab and just grab, let's see, one that I like is glare. We'll search that. This one right here is kind of cool. It's like a camera flashing effect. That looks cool, actually. If I were to drag that over and try to put it on this clip, it'll say there are no continuous clips at this point, can't add the transition. So naturally, what you would probably try to do is take this clip, right, and drag it up on the timeline. But what just happened? You created a void and all the other clips just kind of rushed underneath it, which is gonna throw off our timing. All you need to do to solve this is come over here and turn off main track magnet. Think of it like there's a magnet always sucking the clips to the left. When you turn this off, that goes away. And now I can bring this up and that space stays there, right? It keeps our timeline just consistently timed. Everything is good. Now we have that gap here. I can take glare, throw it between these two clips. And now look at that. We have our transition here and I can play through it.
On seeing everybody cut loose on the dance floor.
Boom. Now, the issue there is we have this clip now, this track has been muted. So we'll have to turn this track back on, and instead we'll just bring the audio level on this clip down to 0. See what I did right there? There's always like a little line here. You can turn the volume up or down. I'll just hit Command Z there. So rather than mute the whole track, I just took this clip and I brought that bar all the way down to 0, muting it. Now, another thing I noticed here is we actually have some captions that got buried by the B-roll. So you can see we have our captions playing, and then the B-roll clip being on top of those captions now hides it. All we really need to do here is we can actually just take these clips right here, select them all, and bring them up to this layer right here. Now they are still coming through. Now, up next in this process, I want to cover how to actually add manual and custom graphics. We talked about auto captions, but sometimes you want something a little more than that. And I think for this video, a really cool opportunity for that would be kind of like title card sequences for all of the main songs that Ashley is referencing. So for example, right here,
Coming in at number 3, we have Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison.
so here we could go to what I call a full screen graphic. To do that, I'm gonna bring in a motion background. Now, I love motion backgrounds because they kind of just break up your edit so that viewers not just staring at your face the whole time. You can usually get really cool motion backgrounds. I'm going to use one that I always use, which is my kinetic dots background. I love this, I use it all the time. I got it from contentcreatortemplates.com, but I can actually give it to you for free in this video. I'll have a link below where you can get this background and one of my favorite sound effects that I use in a lot of my videos for free. So we will double click that, import it into CapCut just like everything else in this video. And now I can drag it down to the timeline. Let's figure out where we want to use it though.
Girl by Van. Coming in at number 3, we have
right here. So at the beginning of this clip, we will bring this guy down. And obviously it's way too long and not properly sized. So we'll trim it down to just that clip. And then we can come over here and rotate it by grabbing that little rotate icon and then increasing it to fill up the whole frame. So we can basically delete these captions because we don't need them anymore. And we can create our own custom graphic. So I will go to text, and then we'll come all the way down here to the add text option. Now, there are a bunch in here. Again, some are pro, some are not. I'm just gonna start by hitting default and dragging it down here. You can see we've just created another layer. I'm gonna write number 3. Pretty cool. We'll increase the size of that. We will drag it up to the top. And then from there, I'm just gonna change the styling of it. So with this layer selected, with the text tab up here, and then on basic, we can change a bunch of things. So I like to come to the font, and I know the one that I use all the time is Hollyland is pretty nice, just because it's kind of like tall and great for reels because it doesn't horizontally take up that much space. So we'll increase the font size again. That looks pretty cool. We can change the color to like a yellow, or that looks good.
coming in at number 3, we
We'll increase the size of that so it takes up the whole space that we need. Now we can quickly duplicate this by holding Option or Alt if you're on a PC while selecting this and dragging it up, right? We literally just duplicated it. And now we can take this text, reduce the size, and say brown-eyed girl. Now we want to time out these text layers so they pop in as Ashley's saying them. So right here is where she starts to say number 3. So we're actually going to select all of these, bring this in.
coming in at number 3, we have
Perfect. So 3 is well timed, and then brown-eyed girl will have pop up right here. So we'll just drag that edge and trim it down.
at number 3, we have Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison.
Now, next level to this, we're gonna add some animation. So with this text selected, we can come to animation up here in the top right. Again, that's text animation. And then we have a ton that we can choose from. Again, you're gonna have pro and free options. I like bounce left,
Number 3,
so we'll select that, and we will do the same bounce
Brown-eyed
left for this.
at number 3, we have Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. There's just something
All I need to do to have a transition between these two slides is come right here, create a cut point, and then drag that section up Now we can come to transitions. So now Ashley gets kind of zoomed into our graphic right there.
Coming in at number 3, we have Brown Eyed Girl by
Super cool. And if we wanted to transition away from that again, we could just drag all these clips up. Now we can select all these, put it on that layer, and we can add another transition. This transition actually makes a lot of sense. We zoom into the title card, and then they have a pull out transition that we can do as well to kind of do the opposite. So we'll drag that over the clips, and now we can play through the entire sequence.
Coming in at number 3, we have Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison.
Now, just like the previous sections, I would normally go and do this over and over and over again throughout the edit anytime I wanted a title card, but to keep you from having to watch me do the same thing over again, we'll move on to our last step, which is adding sound design to our videos. So a really good example would be on this section that we just created here, where we're zooming in to those title cards. There should be kind of like a whoosh sound effect that goes along with those. So what we'll do as always is go back to our media pool, I'll hit import, and now I'm gonna type in whoosh, primarily because I know I already have tons of whoosh sound effects saved on my computer. So here we have a good whip whoosh sound effect that sounds really good. I got it from contentcreatortemplates.com, just like the background, but I'll give it to you for free if you hit that link in the description. All I need to do is double click on that sound effect to import it into the project, and I can drag it right underneath that transition.
At number 3, we have
that looks really good. And now we can actually do the same duplicate effect we did earlier by holding Option or Alt on the keyboard, selecting that and dragging it while still holding Option or Alt. And now you can see we have 2 of our little whoosh sound effects, and I'll bring it underneath this transition as well. So if we play through that section.
In at number 3, we have Brown Eyed Girl by Van Morrison. There's just something about
the last step would just be to export that video. All you need to do is hit export up here in the top right. And if you're posting on social media, I typically recommend to actually drop this resolution to 1080p. We want to film in 4K because that's the highest resolution, but we export and post in 1080p because that's what most social media platforms optimize for. So you just hit export and you are good to go. Hopefully you found this video really helpful, and I'm excited to see what short form content you create. If you haven't already, check out 14-Day Filmmaker. I think there's a ton of stuff in that program that would really level up your content. Other than that, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.